This is Algebra 1, Unit 4, Lesson 1 on proportional relationships. Now, we've done proportional relationships in 7th and 8th grade, but they're the basis of linear functions, which this unit is going to be about. So we're going to review what a proportional relationship is. So, two variables have a proportional relationship if their respective values are always in the same ratio. Okay, ratio means if you were to compare them, they're always multiplied by the same thing. They have the same relative size to one another. So, for example, a ratio could be 6 to 2, which would be a ratio of 3 to 1. Okay, these have the same ratio. Okay, so this here is a multiple of this here. So, basically, when you're doing equation form, the two variables are x and y. Then, to figure out a proportional relationship, it's y over x will give you a constant or a single number. Okay, so that's going to be a constant value. All right, so let's try this out. Exercise 1. At a local farm stand, 6 apples can be bought for $4. Determine how much it would cost to buy the following amounts of apples and round to the nearest cent when necessary. Okay, so we have to figure out which ones are x and which ones are y. Which one is our input and which one's our output? Well, we're talking about apples and cost. All right, so if you're talking about apples and cost, the more apples you buy, the more it's going to cost. So our input is going to be the apples. Your output is going to be the cost. So this is x is going to be this, y is going to be this. All right, so let's figure out the cost for this. So we have to set up a proportion using y over x. So in this case, y over x is going to be $4 will buy 6 apples. So we need to set up another proportion to figure out how much it would cost for a dozen apples. Well, a dozen apples is how many apples? Well, that's 12. Okay, now when I set up my proportion here, where should apples go? It should go down here on the bottom. 12 apples. All right, so what we're looking for here is how much this is going to cost. So this is my variable that I'm looking for. I'm actually looking for y. Okay. All right, how do you solve a proportion? Usually you cross multiply. All right, so I have, multiply these two, is 4 times 12 equals 6 times y. All right, so that gives me 6y equals 4 times 12 is 48, and then divide by 6. And that means 6 apples will cost $8. Or a dozen apples will cost $8. If 6 apples cost 4, then 12 apples should cost 8. That's the same ratio. Okay, so that's going to be y equals 8. We just figured that out. All right, now we can do the same thing for any number of apples. We want to set up the proportion that we know. $4 will buy 6 apples. So that means we want to know how much it's going to cost for 20 apples. So we went dollars to apples, dollars to apples. So this is going to be y dollars, whatever that happens to be. Cross multiply again. 4 times 20 equals 6 times y. All right, so that gives me 6y is equal to 80, and then I have to divide by 6. All right, let me grab my calculator. 80 divided by 6. Now it said round to the nearest cent if necessary. All right, now this is $13 and 2 decimal places is cents, so this is going to be $13.33. All right, so y is going to equal $13.33. So that's how much it costs for 20 apples. So when you set up a proportion, you have to have the same values in the same place, and then you cross multiply. Okay, so now let's look how this works with an equation. If C is the total cost of apples and N is the number of apples bought, write a proportional relationship between C and N. Okay, so remember, input is the N, output is the cost, and it's always going to be y over x. So in this case, the C is going to be the cost, which is the y, over N is the number of apples bought. All right, so we know C over N is equal to, all right, what did we say the cost was that we knew? Well, it was $4. And how many apples could you buy for $4? You could buy 6. All right, so that's the proportional relationship. Solve this equation for the variable c. So we're going to cross multiply just like we've been doing. All right, that gives me 6 times c is equal to 4 times n. So to solve this for c, what do we have to do? Well, we have to divide by 6. So that gives me c is equal to, well, 4 over 6 reduces to a fraction of 2/3 n. So that is the equation of the proportional relationship. All right, now if I want to graph this relationship, let's graph the values we know. All right, let me make a little table of values here. All right, so we know the number of apples is what we plug in, that's n, and then c would be the number, how much it would cost. So let's make this easy. How many, if we don't buy any apples, how much is it going to cost you? Nothing. Okay, we also knew that previously we found that 6 apples will cost you $4. We knew that. All right, and then we had one back here, a nice easy one, 12 apples will cost you $8. Let's use that one. Okay, so there's a couple points that we can use. All right, let me graph this. 0, 0 is here. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4 is there. And then 12 is 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Be right there. Okay, now if I connect my points like this, I'll do it in blue, I can draw a proportional relationship between these points and I can predict any value that I want. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in my calculator because I want to see if my line is right. All right, so the first thing I want to do is put my equation in y equals. So I go to y equals, clear anything out that you have there, and this is going to be 2/3 x. We're just going to use x instead of n. So I'm going to use 2 divided by 3 because I want it to be decimals and not fractions. So 2/3 x. All right, now the next thing I want to do is adjust my window. All right, now my x's go from 0 to, looks like 18. All right, so if I hit my window key, my x min is going to be 0. My x max is going to be 18. Okay, I'll leave the scale as it is for right now. All right, let me look at my y's. It goes from 0 to 18 as well. I'm going by ones again. So 0 to 18 for that. Okay, and let me graph. Oops, I hit my table. You can see here, there's 0, 0, there's 6, 4, and then down here we had 12, 8. And so if I hit my graph, that looks like what's on our paper. So we're good. Okay, now, according to the graph, c of 15 equals 10. All right, let's review what this means. What does c of 15 mean? All right, remember this is the input and this is the output. Okay, so 15 means 15 what? Well, that's the number of apples. 15 apples cost the output, $10. All right, so let's illustrate that on the graph. 15 apples. If I go over here to 15, and let me do a different color so you can tell what I'm doing here. All right, if I go to 15 apples and I go up to my line that I have right here, when does that hit? That hits it at $10. So 15 apples cost $10. That's what that means. Okay, so that line will tell me I can go anywhere on this graph and pick a number of apples and I can pick the cost if this is the proportional relationship. Okay, so for example, if I was looking for 10 apples, it would cost, well, I can look at my table on my calculator. 10 apples would cost $6.67. 3 apples would cost $2. So if I look at my table here, 1, 2, 3 costs $2. Yeah, so this equation of proportional relationship can predict the cost anywhere on that line. All right, let's try exercise 2. If Jenny can run 5 meters in 2 seconds, then which of the following gives the distance d she can run over a span of t seconds going at the same constant rate? Okay, so we are comparing distance over time. So when she has distance, she is going 5 meters every 2 seconds. Distance is distance, time is time. All right, so I want to solve this for D. If I cross multiply here, I get 2D is equal to 5T. And then I want to solve for D, so I divide by 2. And I get D is equal to 5 over 2T. And that's going to be number 4. All right, so distance, we had to plug in the seconds to get the time, or to get the distance. Okay, so distance traveled compared to time is a constant rate. So that's D over T is what we're looking at when we do this. Okay, so Erica is driving at a constant rate. She travels 120 miles in the span of 2 hours. So at the same rate, D over T, we know she's traveling 120 miles, that's distance, for 2 hours. So if I set up my proportion here, how far would she travel in 3 hours? Where would 3 go? Well, it would go across here on the bottom, because that's hours, and we're looking for the number of miles. Okay, let me use Y, or D, I guess that would be, because that's distance. Cross multiply, 2D, that's these two, equals 120 times 3, which is 360. So solving for D, I divide by 2, and D will equal 180, and since we're looking for D, this should be in miles. So D is 180 miles. There we go. Okay, so let's write a proportional relationship between the distance D that Erica will drive over time T that she travels. So that's going to be D over T, distance over time. So the rate that we know is 120 miles, that's the D, and T is the times hours. So if we cross multiply, 2D equals 120T, and then divide by 2, D is equal to 60T. So you plug in the time, you get a distance. That's the formula for this. Okay, so what is the value of proportionality constant? Well, let's compare this. D over T is equal to 120 over 2. If I divide that out, that's going to be 60. So what units is this in? Well, D is in miles, and time is in hours. So this is 60 miles per hour. That's by how much they're multiplying every time. So how much will it take for Erica to travel 150 miles? Well, if we know the formula, D equals 60T, where did 150 go in this problem? That would go here. And then divide by 60. And then T will equal 150 divided by 60 is 2.5. So it would take her 2.5 hours to go that far. All right, so if I want to graph D as a function of T on the axis of the right, at 0, it would be 0. At 1 hour, it would be 60, 20, 40, 60. Okay, at 2 hours, that would be 120. All right, 110, 120. So it's going to look like this. So there is my proportionality constant. Okay, so what does the constant proportionality from C represent about the graph? Well, let's see. The proportionality constant says we're going 60 miles. She travels 60 miles every hour means 1 hour. So that is her speed. So the proportionality constant is actually the speed that she has traveled. Okay, so that is the notes for this assignment. You should be able to do the homework based on these notes.